Hey, just a quick FYI right here at the start of the video. I recorded a lot of this with strep throat, so plain hurt, football guy. If you want to jump around in the video, the offense section starts at about 17 minutes. The defense section starts about 53 minutes and 30 seconds into the video. So if you want to skip interviews or skip the different sections, those are the timestamps. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to Varnadore Films, and we're just over a week out from the opening game of the season. So I thought I'd give everybody a little bit of a Utah preview. We've had such a big lead up time. It'll be the only game of the season where we have a preview like this. But first game of the season, first game of the Billy Napier era against the Pac-12 champ, top 10 team in the swamp. Had to put something together. So I've got AJ Woods from Block U. He covers the Utah team. I've got him coming on to talk with us for about 15 minutes or so about Utah and the game from his perspective. And then we'll get into a little film. We'll watch some Utah offense. I think they're probably going to be pretty good this year. And then some Utah defense. I don't know if they're good or not. I don't. It's kind of interesting. You see, I asked AJ a little bit about some of their injury history. They had some issues last year defensively. So we'll take a look at that, and then we'll kind of talk generally about the game there at the end and get you out of here. But should be a good preview, the most extensive one you'll find anywhere. Let's go talk with AJ Woods now. Welcome back to Varnadore Films. I am joined this week by a very special guest. As you can see, this is not a Florida fan or an SEC person. We've got AJ Woods, the co-managing editor of Block U, the Utah SB Nation site. AJ, how are you doing tonight?
Great, Seth. How about you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to get AJ in. I know he does a really good job over at Block U covering Utah football and other sports. So I want to get his perspective on Utah as we start to get geared up for the season and do a preview. First, we'll start with the stuff that came out today. Utah's a top 10 team in both polls. How does that feel?
It's a little bit strange, to be honest. First time Utah's been ranked in the top 10 preseason. So I think a lot of fans were expecting it. The national media was kind of hyping them up prior to this. So I don't think it came out of the blue by any means, but it definitely feels a little bit strange to be one of the top dogs. It's not a position Utah's used to being in by any means.
Yeah, so let's go back to last year, because it's really last year kind of started off rough. Started off 1-2, right? And then 2-2
correct.
going into the bye week. What was the biggest issue in that start? Was it just quarterback play? Because I know they made the switch shortly after that, right?
Yeah, so quarterback play, I think, was a big deal. Charlie Brewer, transfer out of Baylor, he kind of underperformed, I think, compared to expectations. Cam Rising stepped in, I think, late third quarter, early fourth quarter against San Diego State and really turned things around and just never looked back. But I think even more so than quarterback play, the O-line really hadn't played together up to that point and really hadn't gelled at all, which, I mean, is a huge deal.
Time.
So,
yeah.
So they were kind of shifting in and out of positions. You didn't really have any guys who were playing together and had experience. So that also played a real big factor. And running back depth as well. You were rotating in 4 or 5 guys at running back and didn't really have a lot of consistency there. So to find that consistency was also really big. I think there was a lot of factors there in those first couple weeks.
Yeah, going back and just looking back at last season, looking at Utah, that the theme was kind of a slow start with, and a lot of people pointed to the quarterback play, but you've illuminated some other areas. And then injuries seem to be a big thing, especially defensively.
Yeah.
Could you kind of walk through that? Because it's hard to really get a grasp for me as someone who didn't watch them closely all year to kind of understand when did a lot of these injuries happen and when did we see a full strength defense compared to like kind of a mash unit towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest injuries was to Travis Broughton. He plays corner out in the secondary, starting left corner. He suffered a season-ending injury against BYU. I think that was week 2, 3.
Yeah.
That was a big one because as the season progressed, we lost every corner. By the time Utah got to the Rose Bowl, they were playing Micah Bernard, running back at corner, just because they're out of bodies. We lost guys during the Arizona game late in the season. We lost one guy in the Pac-12 championship game itself. So corner depth really, really hurt us. And it sounds like that's a position as of today that's 100% healthy with a lot of depth. And we're looking pretty strong there right now.
Do you think they had to change some of their schemes? I know looking back to even 2020, Their defensive coordinator talked about they had to play a lot more zone than he would like just because of practice time and all those kind of restrictions with that COVID year. Did they run into the same kind of stuff, just run out of bodies last year where they had to play some stuff they maybe didn't want to defensively?
I don't really that really came down to much of a schematic change, just a matter of next man up. The scheme really hasn't changed. Kyle Whittingham's defense has been a stalwart of this program for the past 20 some odd years. So,
okay, so now let's move into this year where you've got a ton of preseason expectations we've already talked about. You've got an unbelievable quarterback coming back. Where do you think the strength of this team is? Is it that quarterback and then that running game you have to lean on?
Yeah, really, this is another weird year for Utah because, as I said, the stalwart of the Utah program has been Kyle Whittingham's defense. But right now, I'm looking at this team, and everything about the offense just clicks so well. Whether it be Cam Rising at quarterback, I mean, he was like the 6th-ranked quarterback based on QBR last year. Tavion Thomas was a 1,000-yard rusher and only started like 6 or 7 games. Brant Keithy and Dalton Kincaid, amazing tight end duo. There's just a lot of talent all around this offense. They can score anywhere on the field.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun to watch. Going back and watching film on them, they do a ton of moving. They're going to be really difficult for anybody to defend. They lost Covey, who was one of their best receivers. How does that receiving core look coming into this year? I know they had some young guys kind of step up and make some plays last year, but how are they looking coming into this season?
Yeah, so Britton Covey, I mean, if you watch the Rose Bowl, you saw what he's capable of. Really small guy, but unbelievable speed. He's now with the Philadelphia Eagles. I would expect Devon Vele to kind of fill in those shoes. There's been a lot of talk with him out of fall camp. He's really kind of flown under the radar the last couple of seasons. Last year, I think he averaged about 16.9 yards per catch, but he only had about 23 catches. I think he's easily able to double that production this year, and like I said, fill that shoe that Britton Covey left behind.
And he also is leaving behind some big shoes to fill in the return game.
Absolutely.
Looking at, was it a really bizarre year for Utah special teams last year? I saw I think I've looked at 4 or 5 games, and it seems like there's a punt getting blocked, or there was all kinds of crazy stuff it seemed in their games on special teams.
Special teams usually is one of those strengths for Utah, and last season they just didn't have it. So yeah, the punt return, I'm really curious to see who they throw there. There was some talk today that's not really been shored up just yet. Micah Bernard's a guy. He plays running back. He was our corner back in the Rose Bowl, as I said earlier. He's a guy that I think could easily kind of take that spot. There's also some talk about Clark Phillips III. He's another cornerback. You probably are familiar with him as well. There's a lot of talk about him taking kickoff or punt returns. So we don't really know what's going to happen there in regards to, giving up punt returns and kickoff returns like Utah did last season. That's an area that I'm still a little bit worried about. There hasn't been much clarification about how that's going to get fixed. But it is something that needs to get fixed if Utah expects to remain a top 10 team this season.
Yeah, and it seemed last year that the offense, once they made that switch at quarterback, was kind of clicking against whoever they played. But in the losses, the defense I know they gave up about 20 more points in losses than they did in wins, which obviously you're typically going to give up more. But it seemed like a big gap. That Oregon State game kind of sticks out. And it looks like there's a lot of are they losing a lot of production off that deep? It looks like they're kind of losing some of their, and obviously at linebacker they're losing a stud, but what else are they losing maybe in that front seven?
Yeah, so the biggest loss is going to be Devin Lloyd. He was our stud linebacker. Really, I don't worry about the defense as much in most years because it is a position group that we usually just reload with. Mohamed Diabate, obviously a transfer out of Florida, I think is going to be a body that's going to be able to fill a hole. Coming out of fall camp today, the word is that they're not going to release a depth chart. So I really don't have any expectations for who's going to be starting at linebacker to fill that hole from Lloyd. But there are some bodies. One guy in particular that I like to highlight is Lander Barton. He comes from a family of Utes. He's got 2 brothers in the NFL. His parents both were athletes at the U. He's a guy that could be a day one starter as a true freshman. So I really don't expect to see a whole lot of drop off in production defensively, just because traditionally speaking, that's not the Utah way.
Yeah, no, they seem to be a tough physical team every year, no matter who's playing. So I wouldn't think that would change anytime soon under Kyle Whittingham. So
No.
what do you think is we kind of highlighted what we think maybe the strength of that offense. What do you think is going to be the one thing that could trip Utah up this year as they look to kind of make a play for the playoff?
Again, it's going to be special teams. There's just so many question marks around that unit that really could trip Utah up in a clutch situation. I mean, going into the swamp week 1, that's going to be a beehive. That's not going to be a fun game by any means for those Utes. So if you have one cog in that wheel that isn't working, it's probably going to be special teams, and that it really could cause problems like you saw against Oregon State even.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting game. Obviously, Utah's really talented, really well coached team, and I think they look really similar, especially offensively, to what Florida is trying to do. How much is just looking through? They seem to play those tight ends that are both studs. They seem to play them together a lot. Is that kind of
Yeah.
their base look? Is having both those guys out there?
Yeah, right now with Andy Ludwig at offensive coordinator, you're going to see some dual tight end packages quite a bit. And Utah's always been a team that's going to want to run the ball first. You're going to see a lot of Tavion Thomas. He's just an absolute truck of a human being.
How many touchdowns did he score? Wasn't it something insane?
21 touchdowns, I think. I mean, he had like a run of like 11 touchdowns over 3 games. So, yeah, the dude's unbelievable.
Yeah, I love watching how they do the run game. Like you said, they took some time to gel on the offensive line last year. Is that something you think is going to creep up again early this year? I know they're losing a couple guys from that offensive line last year. Or do you think that the majority of these guys have been together so it will be quicker?
Yeah, so the talk today is there's about 8 guys who they're looking to rotate in and out, but they're going to have their own. They started at their positions. They're going to stay at their positions. There's not going to be a whole lot of experimenting. Coach Jim Harding is responsible for that unit, and he's been very vocal about the fact that he knows there was a slow start last season, and Vans were very vocal about it, and he's really poignant on fixing that this year. So I don't imagine that being as big of an issue by any means. We've got some bodies coming in there pretty healthy and pretty fresh that should make that a pretty easy transition. And beyond the fact that you've got a quarterback and a running back that are both familiar with the system at this point too, to know how to run that offense a little bit easier.
Yeah, and Rising seems like he's a pretty smart guy. You see him making checks and things like that at line of scrimmage, so that can really help those young offensive linemen out. So what are your expectations this year for this team? I know there a lot of people are Pac-12 title and playoff is kind of what people are hoping the ceiling is. So is that kind of where you're leaning right now? Are you thinking ceiling is playoff team?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, but it really seems like that. At the very least, Pac-12 championship. If you don't repeat as Pac-12, at least go to the Pac-12 championship. I don't see if there's anything less than a disappointing season. With all the hype coming in, it's hard to see anything less than a Pac-12 championship. Playoffs, Utah can't control that. They're a small market team. Their strength of schedule isn't going to be overly impressive outside of that Florida game. If USC is good, then that'll definitely help. But at least a New Year's Six game for sure, I think, is the expectation right now.
And this will be interesting to your response. What do you think the floor is? Because I think the floor is really high. Still,
I think the floor is really high. Yeah, I mean, I don't see 4 losses even. I mean, 3 losses would be tough to swallow. If I say the floor is 2 loss floor, is that crazy? I don't know, but it sure as hell feels that way from me.
It seems to me if they beat Florida, I mean, you've got a great chance to make the playoff. Just because you get I think you get a quality on the road win, at least in the mind of the
against an SEC
playoff.
opponent.
You get that out of the way, and then I would imagine they're going to be favored against almost everyone on their schedule. They're favored against Florida right now, so they may be favored against just about everybody except USC's kind of a public team. But
yeah, I mean, FPI has, I think, Florida and Oregon as the 2 that Utah isn't favored against, but FPI is its own beast. I'm looking at the schedule, and my biggest worries really are Florida and UCLA. In all honesty, if Utah can run the table against those 2 teams, I think there's really no reason they can't go undefeated.
Well, that would be something. You've seen undefeated seasons there before, but this one could get you to a playoff and give you a shot, actually, right?
Yeah, those undefeated seasons were way back when Utah was in the Mountain West, so it really didn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we have a national championship, so to speak, but no, that would really be a big deal to go undefeated as a Power 5, I think, especially with the Pac-12 being in as much turmoil as it is right now. I mean, that would really be something to hang your hat on.
So before we get you out of here, what are your thoughts on that as somebody who Utah's in the Pac-12, but they're one of the newer members. What are your thoughts on kind of the future of the Pac-12 and what you'd like to see Utah do in the future?
Yeah, who knows, man? It changes from day to day. It seems like I really don't know what to make of the whole situation. I'm bummed. I enjoy playing USC and UCLA on a yearly basis. Those are games I look forward to this season to get a holder as a fan. Um, I hope the conference stays alive just because there's so much history in the Pac-12. I mean, you've got the Rose Bowl and you've got all these
Mhm.
just fantastic history of football and basketball. Beyond that, I mean, people kind of don't even think about the basketball aspect of that. But yeah, it's tragic to see. I don't know how else to put it. It really it's a bummer. I mean, the whole prospect of just losing football because capitalism gets in the way just kind of sucks.
Yeah, there's definitely like a corporatization of college football that's creeping in a little bit, but
It
um,
is
this
the
this
NIL
first
deal and
game,
everything else on top of it.
yeah, it's not too bad to go back and watch some Alex Smith highlights. That'll make you feel better, though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and giving us a great preview of Utah. I think it's going to be an awesome week one game, if for nothing else than seeing a Utah team in the swamp at Gainesville should be a cool spectacle to see. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming on and teaching us a little bit about this Utah team. Thanks again to AJ Woods for coming on and talking with us about Utah. Now let's get to the Utah offense. I think they are going to be quite good this year. They've lost a couple guys. The receiver will be an interesting position for them. They lost Britton Covey, who's really, really good for them, not only at receiver, but also in the return game. And we talked about that with AJ a little bit. And then they lost a couple of offensive linemen. So will that have an effect on them, especially first game of the season coming into the swamp? Maybe, but I expect this unit to be pretty good and probably the one of the best units, maybe the best unit on the field in week one. So let's take a look at the Utah offense. What's interesting to me about Utah's offense is that I think it's pretty similar to what Billy Napier wants to run at Florida. You see a lot of 12 personnel, so you see a lot of two tight end stuff. Napier showed the propensity to do that in Louisiana. You see a lot of motion. Napier also showed that, and a lot of condensed formations. So you kind of see all three here on this first play. You see motion, you see condensed formation, you see two tight ends kind of trading. The little zone run game here starts with a fumble, not the best play to start with, but little split zone action. The other thing is they love the zone run game. They got some really good backs that are coming back. That's Micah Bernard, number 2. Tavion Thomas was the one that fumbled earlier, but he had 21 touchdowns last season. He's a really good player. They particularly are good at running wide zone, which you'll hear Napier. You'll see Florida run that under Napier, and you saw him run it at Louisiana. So this is against BYU early in the season. They're really good at the zone run game. That's kind of, I think, their bread and butter. And I don't think it'll be too dissimilar for Florida. I think Florida's going to really live and die with their zone run game as well. They'll run some inside zone, but I think Utah's really good and best at the wide zone. Here again, you see Bernard making a big play. This guy actually had to play corner in the Rose Bowl. They were down so many guys. So he's obviously a talented athlete. They didn't do great on defense in the Rose Bowl, but the fact that he's able to play both sides is kind of interesting. Here's them against Oregon State. This back has gone on to the NFL, I believe, so you won't see him. But just another look at kind of some more wide zone from them. This is I think their bread and butter, and they're really good at it. There's Thomas. He's a bigger back, but they do a good job. Again, you see condensed formations, multiple tight ends here. They're not afraid to line up and kind of bully people. I think they face the most 9-man boxes in the country, so it's obviously something they're comfortable with. So if Florida decides to do that, I don't think it would be shocking for Utah in terms of dealing with it schematically. Now you got to deal with it physically, right? That's the question. But they were able to run the ball on pretty much everyone they played last year. Nobody really held them down last year. outside of maybe San Diego State gave them some issues, but they have an interesting defense. Here you see them running this in for a touchdown. And this is, they also will add where it looks like zone, they'll add a fullback, especially on the goal line, and he'll act as kind of a lead blocker here. He'll kind of insert himself into the play, functioning as a lead blocker there, just to add a little flavor on the goal line. And you will see some play action off of that as well. Here's kind of another look at it, kind of a similar thing here. They have another play they like on the goal line, but we'll go over that later. But this is kind of, the zone game is where they make most of their money, and I think they're really good at it. These are all just kind of examples of them running the wide zone. I looked at 5 games of theirs last year, 5 or 6, and they were able to run the ball pretty well on everyone they played. They can run it out of the gun. They can run under center. They don't do pistol. I didn't see a ton of pistol from them, so it's not something I'd say they never do, but they don't do a ton, so that's kind of one differentiator between what Napier wants to run and what they ran. But I think get ready for a heavy dose of the wide zone run game from Utah. Rising's a really smart guy. He checks it different ways. What's interesting, they have an interesting one coming up here where they go formation into the boundary with it. So they'll also give you some interesting formation and stuff. So you got one tight end here, second tight end here, and then 2 receivers up here. So, the strength, you'd say there's 3 guys here, so you'd say the strength is here. But, the field's here. So some teams set the strength to the field, some teams set it to the passing strength. Or so how do you set it? Are you going to set the strength into the boundary? If you don't kind of match that, and you see he can be reached, then I can get the next level here. I can climb to safety. I should have pretty good angles here blocking this zone and pretty good numbers for this. Run into the boundary. So they're somewhat creative with their formations and things like that too. It's not just, we're just going to line up and run it at you. They do some interesting stuff. And you see here, what's one of the benefits of the zone? You read it and it can kind of hit anywhere. So you got the wide zone that can hit out here. You got inside zone, which kind of hit here and cut back. And these kind of backs, you really got a track where these guys can hit it at different spots based on what we get up front here and how we're able to move. It's right here, good vision. There's Thomas, who fumbled on the first play, but like I said, scored 21 touchdowns for them last year. So the guy is a player. And that's a look at the zone run game. We'll move on now to other parts of their run game. All right, so you get teams playing hard to the front side trying to stop this zone. Well, what can you come back from or come back with? You can come back with some counter. Utah didn't run a ton of counter, but it seemed when they ran it, it was a pretty positive play for them last year. You see pulling the guard and the tight end, the off tight end there. Right? You get people, quarterback opens this way. You get people thinking, well, we're going to come zone here. He's like, come back there. Flat and kick out the first thing you see. Wrap inside. This is executed beautifully against Ohio State. There you go. Kick him out. Now wrap inside. Watch how they block this thing up. That's pretty easy right there. Really, really well done. And if you run enough zone and you start to overplay it, we can come to this counter. And like I said, they gave Ohio State all kinds of problems last year. Here it is against UCLA. Good run by the back. But again, you get flow coming one way, and you can take it back the other way. Get those guys in space, let them make plays. So this wasn't something I saw as obviously as much as zone. I think, like I said 1,000 times already, zone is their bread and butter, but they do a good job of packaging things to where once you start to overload to the zone stuff, they can come back with a counter, and it's typically hits pretty well. They do some other stuff in the run game. They do a little duo. That's what I think would be duo, where you're getting a lot of double teams inside. This is a favorite right here on the goal line. This is a G lead or lead G. They like this on the goal line. Down block, kick out by the guard, and the fullback's coming through, leading up on the first thing he sees. Kick by the guard. Here comes the fullback. Back's able to power this one in for a touchdown. That's one of their favorite goal line plays. If they're on the goal line, I'm sure you'll see that. Another thing that helps them in the run game is Cam Rising is he's a good runner, especially he understands kind of how to scramble and make stuff happen. He helps you in the run game as well. Doesn't take a ton of sacks. You see here, now this left tackle's gone. I do have some questions about their pass protection at times, but Rising is so good and crafty. He's able to get out of a lot of plays where maybe he should be sacked. And he's a really smart guy, so I think he's got a pretty good internal clock in terms of when he needs to tuck it and run. And he's a tough guy. He got popped against Ohio State, but that threat of him running also allows you to do stuff like this. Run a little speed option, which they will do every now and then. Here's another look at what I think is probably duo, I would have to guess, where the back can kind of read a second-level defender. And you see these guys can play at running back position. Lord. Rising again, a broken play, is able to make something out of nothing here. He takes off. He's a plus athlete. He's not Anthony Richardson, but he's really good. And he's a really, really smart guy. Again, let's look at the goal line. Here's your G lead or lead G. Way to finish the run there, but you see it. This is the play they like on the goal line when they bring in the fullback. They like the wide zone lead. And they also like this kick lead. They're also not afraid to go quarterback sneak. Here's a nice look from the backside here. They don't start the replay after the snap, but you see these guys are down blocking. Here comes the guard. Fullback's going to be right in there. Kick him out. There's the fullback. There's the alley. Get in it. Stick your nose in there and score. Good job there by the back finishing the run. Talk about Rising's got pretty smart, pretty good, pretty crafty in the pocket, understands when he needs to take off, when he needs to run. Now, it'll be interesting to see. He took some big hits against Ohio State and had to leave the game. How much they want him scrambling this year will be interesting to see. But again, that gives you the threat of quarterback run and speed option. He can make a broken play, a good play there. They also have jet sweep. We'll see if they do this without Covey. But I'd imagine it would still be part of the package there. And then you get people moving. You got a little reverse you can always hand off. So, again, well packaged up run game. I think they do a really good job understanding what they do well and then understanding how you're going to try to counter it. So I think Utah's also got a really good passing game. I think it's well layered. They will take some shots down the field, but it's a lot of intermediate throws. If you follow SEC Stat Cat on Twitter, he recently did a breakdown of kind of where Utah likes to hit some throws and a lot of intermediate things underneath throws. Rising's really good at. They will take some shots down the field, but it's not really their game. But here it just looks to me like kind of all curls. They don't mind just having guys curl up at the first down marker at the sticks. Space guys up. get the back out wide. So this is almost like a fence play. Almost looks like to me where we're coming in here hoping I get some type of man coverage, make this linebacker run through all that or that DB run through all that, and I'll throw it to the back out in the flat. Rising is really good with timing, on time and on target a lot. You don't see a ton of him being late. Right here, you got snag concept, double slant to the other side. You saw this in the Florida spring game. They bring the heat, double slant. Good run after a catch by one of their tight ends. Looks like some just kind of curl flat stuff in the red zone. Do it a couple times, different ways. But to me, it's basically curl flat. You get a little interference there. All curls again. Intermediate timing. Find the hole in zone. 3rd and 10, 3rd and long. That's a good play to find the hole. Sit down. This is Brewer, who started their first few games. This could be there's a concept they like. Again, it's from these condensed sets. There's a concept they like as well where he's running like a dig, and you'll see it later. He can sit or run a pivot, and then you got him riding, trying to get the defense out wide here. Dig pivot is a classic combination. Or Myers running at Utah in 2004, so it's not the first time they've seen this one. It looks kind of like a crow flat to the other side. One concept I've noticed they really like, and they like to pair it with other things, is the smash concept. So here they do it to the 3-by-1 side, it looks like to me. But they love it to the boundary side a lot, and we'll see that later. But here this looks almost like 2 5-yard ends in the corner, post coming back behind it in the flat. They like to go, and we'll see it here, that corner to the boundary. Here the defense falls off, drop it off to the back. And you'll see here why Charlie Brewer didn't last for much longer than these first couple games. Not a great play here, but they're going smash to the boundary. That's something they seem to like a lot. This high-low. What's this guy going to do? Where's he going to go? High-low into the boundary. They seem to like, and it lets them do a lot of different things to the field. To me, this looks a little bit like, it's hard to see because the ball gets out so fast. He's down the middle of the field. One thing they do like to run, and I'm not sure if they're running it here exactly, is drive, where you have a 10, 12-yard dig and then a shallow underneath it. It's a West Coast passing concept. A lot of high lows in the passing game, which are helpful. But here you see you got smash to this side when you got the corner. Then you got a pivot here. Different way to run it, but same idea. Then I believe you got the pivot here. Post. Too high. Get this guy to open up to take the corner. You got one-on-one with a lot of space at the post. Here they hit it for the touchdown. And I think this is something they just packaged together because they seem to like this a lot. Again, smash. That's smash to me, inverted smash. Then here you got drive. Drive concept, shallow and a dig. See, a rising's really good. Throwing the ball on the run, accurate passer. Good decision maker too, quick with it. Tight end, nub formation. Corner. Here to the flat. So again, you got that smash there. This looks like a Y cross combination where he's working the deep crosser. He's working the corner out. He's in the flat. He's on flat here, and he's got a dig chasing behind. But again, that's tagged with smash. Rising smartly drops it down. Same idea, just high-low right here. Flat corner. Got a shallow coming back across. Could function as almost a throwback, but flat there, corner there, smash. Same idea here. You got one to the back pylon, one to the front pylon. It's still smash. You see Rising's legs again here, but notice you got smash into the boundary. I'm guessing that's Y cross there. I think you have a dig off screen that's going to come back. That would come back into his throwing window here if he was able to get the throw off. Here's where he takes some big hits, though. It'll be interesting to see if Florida can kind of get him if he scrambles a few times. Eventually made him leave the Ohio State game. He's a tough guy, but it's tough kind of putting yourself in those kind of hits. But Utah does like to do kind of those crossing routes. There's a Y cross right there. Here's a look at drive with snag and pick. This is another thing they like to do is kind of pick for their slot receiver. You got the drive concept here. So to me, I'm guessing they have, and this is something I think Florida did last year in the Mullen, and you'll see a lot of people do, is they'll have 2-man concepts called something, 3-man concepts called something, 1-man concepts called something, so they can just mix them together. So they might call this, this is just like a snag slot fade. So whatever they call that, they could call it, rodeo or whatever they want to call it. And then drive. So you can say rodeo drive, whatever. Or rodeo drive when you're playing at the Rose Bowl, I guess. But I'm assuming that's how they have stuff packaged here. Another look at drive, but on the goal line, this is a good change up for it. You have your drive route. Then if you get a ton of play on these, you have a follow coming behind it. Nice concept there. So if he was really to play hard on this, you'd have this come open right there if you get some type of man. You're hoping to widen that possibly for a dig right there. Just a little. This is one of the few times Rising was a little late. And then what do you have to the boundary? I think you have smash. Another look at drive, hit the shallow, catch and run. This is one of the tight ends. They have their tight ends are really, really good in the receiving game. I think they're decent in the run blocking game. They are assignment sound. I don't think they are killers, but they're so good in the passing game, and they move them all around that they're going to give you problems. Another air raid staple here, a little mesh action. This is something they like. They don't. It's not. So you see some little bit of air raid stuff like Y cross and now mesh, to where you have the two crossers underneath. They like to run it with a sit over the ball. And this is something with condensed formations that you can do. And it makes you difficult, right, to stop here. And you can kind of have a free roll with this guy. You can run him on a corner route. So they run him on a corner route. You can run him on a go route. With condensed formations, you can do quite a lot with them. But the main thing is you got these two guys that have crossed, and they can open up this hole for the sit over the ball here. Off those lead plays they like on the goal line. You can slip the back out here. Oregon State was not their best day. They left some points on the board offensively. But, we're talking about high-low basically. But then you have that coming as well. So it's basically mesh with the fullback in the flat. And they got exactly what they wanted, just got some run through, forced a bad throw there. And they were a little out of sync in that Oregon State game, which they lost. And this could be a Y cross. It could just be verticals. They do like to run verticals, and we'll get to some of that in a second. They run a ton of verticals, but this is a great look at mesh. Great throw right here against Ohio State. Mesh with the running back converting it into a wheel. I think some people call it rail. But with the motion, try to catch Ohio State off guard here. Coming over the ball, crossers. You got a linebacker matchup on your running back, who's a pretty good player. Great throw, great catch there. Beautiful touchdown on the Rose Bowl. And this is something they'll do as well. We showed earlier this kind of snag concept. Well, you don't have to run it with a corner. You can run it with a slot fade, which is what they do here. So the same idea here, but instead of running the corner, give them something, and then you get the fade. You're hitting the same spots on the field, right? If I ran a corner route, I'd end up there as well. So you're hitting the same spots on the field. And that's one of their tight ends right there. They got some good players. Same thing right here. You see they throw the snag route, but it's the same idea. Snag, widen him. He widens. He carries the fade. Now you got a big hole right here for the snag route. Put it on him. Get a first down. Same thing right here. Same idea. Except the third down, you drop it. And then this is a true Y cross, I believe. Interesting way to run it, though. And they will run these kind of screens, and they like to slip. They like to try to slip you on these screens, too. So they'll run the show screen where he's coming out of block, and now he's going to slip him. You got the crosser here. Dig coming behind it. This Y cross, just a little bit different way to run it. But they have hit some big plays on that slip. And let's look at some of those slips, right? So here they look like they're throwing the bubble down here. So you got the bubble here, you can throw it down here. He's coming to block. You see he's pointing out, oh, he's coming for you. Just kidding. We're gonna slip that. Goodbye. Touchdown. Same thing, bubble. Try to get some slow feet, and he's gonna get vertical down the middle. He's gonna break off to the corner. It's almost like a scissors look here. And you get the corner biting up on the back coming, or the receiver coming around here. So you get him biting up. He's cooked. You got the corner out over his head. Getting well designed. Good ball right there. Rising's a player. He's really, really good. And then, hey, if you don't honor it, we'll just throw it out there. Now we've got two tight ends on the perimeter on your defensive backs, and we're going to block you. Well designed stuff. Another intermediate pass play they like here. We'll take a look at it. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, but dig pivot. Classic combination. But here's another look at it. Run this guy through the middle. I don't know if he's got a middle read or what. Dig, pivot. Back's going to get out. Probably has a check release. Rising drops it to him, checks it down. Picks up a first down on 4th and 7, or would have been a first down on 4th and 7, except he dropped the pass. Then again, different way to do it. It looks a little bit almost like a levels concept, but I think he's just kind of sitting because he feels it. If it's man, maybe he'd break back out, but he just sits in the zone. He's coming back behind it. He's winding him out. But to me, it's the same idea. We got the dig coming behind. He can probably sit or widen. You got that coming. Dig pivot. To me, it's all the same thing. And then when you're a good running team, what are you probably also good at? Play action passing. So let's take a look at some of their play action pass. They'll take some max protection shots. So we get the deep over with the post. Here, the post runs them off. You get all kinds of action from the run game. Look at all this action from the run game. He's trailing the deep post. Right, you got the tight end run the deep post. The deep over comes open. All that play from the run game. Thank you very much. Good throw. 17 is back. He's a pretty good player. Didn't have a ton of catches last year, but he's their best guy coming back. If you're good at zone, you're probably good at boot. Rising hits him on the sideline there. If you have that lead G play on the goal line, you probably have a pass off of it. He decides to tuck it here. Oregon State does a good job not getting sucked in, but that's kind of the call here. Also, look at his stance. A little bit different than normal. He's probably pulling. I'm sure Florida's coaches have picked up on that. Little different stance when he's pulling than normal. Anyways, makes it look like G lead. Hoping to get this guy to suck up, and then hoping he'll jump in and then get the tight end behind him. But they did a good job covering up. Rising tucks it and keeps it. But they're not afraid to obviously getting these huge multiple tight end sets. You get the max protection. You motion, especially if you think you're getting man coverage, it kind of maybe messes with the defense. And these guys are all playing run so hard, you can get bust like this if you're not on point, which is the easiest throw Rising will make all year. Just show max protection, throw a corner out. Not too much to it. Here it is from the wide view. You see how much play they're getting out of the run game. And there's literally nobody left. Big bust in coverage there. But condensed formations, multiple tight end sets, movement, motion before the snap on every time makes you reconfirm things as the defense. Here's another max protection shot. Taking a shot downfield. Nice catch by 17 there. They have some passes off of a split zone look. Again, Oregon State, you see a lot of trouble at the red zone, in the red zone here. Just wasn't their night against Oregon State. It didn't seem like. Play action with a whip down here at the bottom of the screen. Some of this stuff, I'm not sure if you'll see a ton of it. They did some H options and things like that with him, or some slot options with Covey as well. I don't know if those will be in the repertoire this year or not. Boots, always got to be a good boot team if you're a good zone team. Rising is really good at the boot. And they package it a bunch of different ways with different guys coming across on this kind of hide route underneath. And he's got some savvy and can drop the ball in over top of guys. So a really good play action team. So when you're a good run team and you're a good play action team, and then you can get a little lucky on that one there. But when you're a good run team and a good play action team, you're really tough to stop. I think that's what Florida's blueprint kind of wants to be. Here's a nice little one right here. Condensed formation, motion. He's getting out fast. And then he gets out fast, draws some eyes, and he just follows underneath right there. Really well designed. Split zone, just following him. Really good stuff. The offense is really well designed. This is going to be a good offense. I think they'll replace their receivers. Another look at boot there. They'll replace the receivers they have. They're missing in the offensive linemen. They'll probably still be pretty good. They don't take a ton of deep shots, but we'll look at a few. I think this is a play concept they like a lot, and they like to go make it look like four verts, and the outside guys have comebacks. Again, a timing route by Rising here, but I'm guessing they're going four verts, and then these guys can come back. I don't know if that's an option or if it's called, but they do it a lot. So 4 verts, 3x1 4 verts. Number 3 is coming across. Again, this could be 4 verts. This could be Y cross. It's hard to tell with his view. But hit it tight end on the crosser. Again, it looks like 4 verts to me. And with the outside comeback. I don't know if that's red or like if I haven't won, I break it off, or if that's called. But they do it a lot. Again here, 4 verts. Looks like 4 verts inside. Receiver coming back to it. With the motion, they'll do some switch verticals where they're switching releases, switching who's the crosser guy. Here they hit a nice shot down the field. Nice shot with pressure in the face. I thought movement gave them some problems up front. So their pass protection is kind of interesting to me. I don't know. And they lost 2 guys, but I don't know if that'll get better or worse this year. There it is again. Looks like 4 verts with a tight end. The cross, deep crosser there. And if he's got it, the tight end may have the middle read. So if it's too high, he may run to the post here. You kind of see him start to break in, bend it in here. He stays up the hash. Then outside you have the comebacks. Pretty well defended there by BYU, but I think this is definitely, there's the crosser for the number 3 guy coming across there. So this is definitely one they like. It's a protected shot. If you get what you want inside here, here's a pretty good, not a bad throw there. If you get what you want inside, you got good matchups. If you can move the safety, if not, you kind of have a protected where if I don't win outside, I get to come back to it. So it gives you a little bit of something there, ball tip there, but that's the same idea. So Utah's offense, really good. I think they're going to give anybody they play just about trouble this year. But it'll be a nice test for new defensive coordinator Patrick Toney. There are some, they're going to run the ball pretty well on just about everybody, but I think you have the opportunity to create some negative plays in the passing game with your pass rush and how much you like to move up front. That could create some winning scenarios for you defensively. But Cam Rising's really good. Their backs are really good. Their tight ends are awesome. It's going to be a tough first test for Patrick Toney. All right, you saw Utah offense was pretty good. Got a really good quarterback, some great running backs, and they're able to run the ball just about on everybody they played last year. Now, did they play the greatest defenses? No, but it wasn't terrible. Looking back at the season, Utah finished 2nd in the country in yards per rush. Florida was 5th or 4th. And they basically played similar schedules when you add up all the FBS teams they played last year. So if Utah's really good at running the ball and they bring all these guys back, well, then Florida will probably be pretty good at running the ball too because they're bringing a bunch of guys back. So that'll be interesting to see how these 2 offenses stack up, especially running the ball. But let's take a look at the Utah defense now. They have a lot of a really good reputation. They've always been pretty hard-nosed. Watching them from last year, they had some trouble with some teams. Now, they had a lot of injuries, and we spoke with AJ about that earlier. But let's take a look at what they run. It's nothing crazy schematically. We'll take a look at what they run and kind of see where maybe some of their issues might have been last season. Kyle Whittingham has a reputation as a defensive coach. They have a former player as a defensive coordinator. The scheme, I think, has been pretty consistent for a while with obviously, I would imagine, some tweaks. They are, I believe, a base 4-2 team. They get into some 4-3, I think, depending on opponent and opponent personnel. They lost their starting 2 linebackers, which were pretty good players. Lost one of their edges. Number 42 was a really good player. But they've got some good guys coming back. They had some guys that were injured and out for parts of last year. So it's really hard to tell exactly what this Utah defense is going to be. They mix up coverage. You see a good bit of 1 high, 2 high. You'll see some 0 man. You'll see a lot of blitz. The defensive coordinator has stated in the past that he likes playing a lot of man coverage. They had to get away from it a little bit with COVID, and then with guys going out last year, I think they had to get away from more as well. So we'll see if they do a bit of a return to form for him and go with some more man coverage. They definitely aren't afraid to be aggressive. So you'll see that here. I thought watching them back, this is not Georgia's defense, obviously, right? Understatement, but I don't think they don't have quite the level of athlete at all 11 positions. They've got some dudes, they've got some definite guys that can play. They got some guys in the middle there up front that are strong and stout. They've got a good edge rusher coming back. They've got a corner coming back that's really well regarded. I just don't think at every single position they've got elite athleticism, but few teams do. I think they're mostly assignment sound. They do what they're told. They weren't as good of a tackling team as I thought they would have been going back and watching them. But they're not going to make it easy on you. I think they're going to do a pretty good job and have good schemes and good ideas behind what they do. We'll look at some examples. So we'll start with some one high stuff. I can't tell exactly what they're doing. I'm kind of having to guesstimate based on where guys are at. They might be doing some straight spot drop cover three, just like normal cover three, like you first learn about. They might be doing some Rip Liz stuff, which is kind of out of the Saban book. Same thing. They might be playing true blue cover two, hard corners in the flats. I think they're doing some read two probably as well, and probably some quarter stuff out of that as well. I doubt they're just playing true blue cover three and true blue cover two. I'm sure they're mixing it up. But the TV copies we get don't really give us a good picture. So some of it is guessing, but just kind of get a look at some of the stuff they do. They got some big bodies up front that can push the pocket. 58 is coming back. I believe he was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. Really good player. 7 is back. He's another good player down here. Gets to the quarterback. Push the pocket here. Keep everything underneath. It's 3rd and 11. They're not afraid to kind of play a little bit softer on some long, 3rd and longs, and kind of let you throw it underneath and come and rally and tackle. Here's a look. Oregon State had some success on the ground and through the air against them. Another look at kind of one high stuff, what Oregon State was able to do. Get in there behind. You see the tackle by number 7 here, but one thing that I'm interested to see how they play Anthony Richardson. There are times they did not play the quarterbacks real well in the run game, and you'll see that as we go through here and look at some of their stuff. Here, kind of, see a tackling issue. This is where I kind of see where's the elite athleticism kind of fly down and catch this. To me, this safety is not flying downhill 100 miles an hour. Now, again, they had a bunch of guys hurt, so I don't know really who's who, but that's not one of Georgia's safeties right there. That's not Lewis Seen coming down there and filling the alley. So they'll get in some. So here you see they will get in some different fronts. They're not just going to stay straight 4 across the board. And even then, I from what I've seen, they'll get into your normal over fronts. They'll get into under fronts. They'll get into where they're head up on the guards. They'll get into some tight fronts. They change their front up quite a bit. A lot of times the personnel's the same, but the alignment is different. So here you see kind of an odd look. It's 3rd and 8, but it looks like you're playing, man coverage or some sort of. You got slot matched up man on Phillips, who's your best corner. He's able to make a play there. Phillips is coming back. He's a pretty good player. He makes an interception in the Rose Bowl on Ohio State, so he's no slouch. But you're able to make a play over the top there. And again, you get a one high coverage here, able to kind of open this safety up a little bit. Kind of come behind it there. For the touchdown. And this is, again, where it'll be interesting. How do they play Anthony Richardson? Because Oregon State started to pull the ball with a quarterback here. You see, I got to slow play it now a little bit. I think this type of formation gives them issues. Nub tight end. So tight end to one side, 3 receivers opposite. So no receivers outside. Sometimes they'll go corner over where the corner travels on the other side. But this is a look with how they play sometimes down here where, I mean, this is stealing. If I can read him and I got a blocker for him, there's nobody left out there. So this nub gave them some issues, and I would be interested to see if Florida's going to come to it because they're filling. Oregon State was a great outside zone team as well, so they're filling here. But now I can read him, and he's got to slow play this a little bit because if he doesn't, the quarterback's out the gate. Good read by the running back here. Able to move the ball in a big chunk here on the ground. Cover 1. Looks like to me. Could be 3. Corner down the bottom seems pretty locked on. Here's that number 7. Fillinger, I believe is his name. He's pretty good off the edge. Strong guy. Pretty good with his hand. Pretty good technician, I think. Not crazy explosive, but he's going to get in the backfield if you don't, really play him well. He's no slouch. He's a pretty good player. I think he's going to cause problems for some people this year. Here it's BYU. Kind of sit back, keep it in front of you, come up and make a play. Getting a little bit of interior push, able to rally and make the tackle. Getting one high, able to kind of find a hole here for a completion. And here's another look at kind of playing the quarterback. This is, I think, a key to the game, obviously. If Richardson's able to get some stuff going with his legs, that'll help the offense immensely for Florida. But you'd have to imagine that Utah is ready for that. Now, Jaron Hall is a good rusher as well, and I would imagine they would have been preparing for that last year as well, and he was able to get off some pretty good runs there. So that'll be interesting to see that chess match. How are they going to play Anthony Richardson in the run game? So there's some one high stuff. They do some two high stuff as well. They like to roll to it. So it looks like one high. They'll roll to 2. You can get caught that way. So right here, UCLA catches him. He sees the bubble. The corner rolls down. He's rolling to deep half. So I'm taking him to deep half. I'm in his line of sight right now. The corner jumps up on the bubble. And now you see you got some interior pressure, but a bust on the back end. Again, they're playing a lot of guys. There were some injuries last year, so some guys got hurt, but there's a few busts like this last year. Drop it down, keep it in front, make the play, rally and tackle. So they're not afraid to go too high, try to get you to throw underneath stuff. I think they like playing it in some third and mediums, and they put the corners at the sticks. So they'll sit these guys at the sticks. So they can play the flat, they can play at 5. If you try to hit something underneath, they got guys that can come rally and tackle. I'm guessing that's the idea behind it. They did a little, you see some little bit of a move up front here. But again, look at this nub formation. This nub formation has got to be something Florida attacks right here. If you're going to get corner over anything like that, the numbers here are too good. Now they are moving here, but your numbers are great in the run game back there. I would imagine Florida's going to attack that. So here it is again. We're going to roll to it. Roll to too high. Guys making plays here. You see you're getting a little push. The quarterback is kind of confused by the roll, I think, and he kind of forces it in. It's a tight window before the ball gets tipped. I mean, this is covered up pretty well. So this is a quarterback, I think, making his first start. He was not the starter for UCLA last year. He played pretty well, but here, maybe he's thinking he's going to get something one high, and he's looking for curl flat or something, and it's, oh no, that's not there. Forces him to hold a little bit. It gets tipped up, and then good play by the linebacker here to make the interception. A little bit unlucky for UCLA, but part of that is that roll to that. Good job there handling it. But again, you see, they want to show one high presentation at first, and then I'm going to roll to deep half here. Again, interior push. This is 58, I believe. He's coming back. He was only a freshman. Big, strong dude in the interior. Florida's going to have to deal with him. He's a pretty good player there. Great edge rush. Luckily for Florida, this guy's not coming back. I thought he was a really good player, 42. I think he signed as a free agent in the NFL, so maybe he'll catch on with the team, but I thought he was a pretty good player. But here it looks like we're showing aggressively here, and then we're going to back out, play coverage behind it. Same idea here, one high presentation, roll to two high. Quarterback drops it off. Right here, you're in good position. If you're in 3rd and 6 and you get him to drop this thing off, now rally and tackle, get off the field. Utah at times was not just a great tackling team last year, I thought. So that may be uncharacteristic, and that may not be something Florida can really bank on, but was interesting nonetheless. Here's another kind of bust. Some of these busts, they're on here, but I don't know. I don't think it's something you can count on. They had some guys that are former walk-ons coming in playing. It could just be lack of reps. But, your safety's playing right here, and you're in kind of a too-high look. Can't get caught like that. You got to get over the top. So, safety gets caught peeking. Hit one over the top there. Again, quarterback run, I think they may be susceptible to, but we're just looking really here at the back end rotation. So they'll give you kind of a one high presentation at the snap and roll to two high. Your quarterback's got to be prepared for that because they can really condense the space, especially on the boundary here. You see how condensed this space gets right here. This is a tough look. Something we saw Utah run. Florida runs this. Everybody runs this quick game concept. Snag, corner, flat. You can really condense the space to the sideline there, make it a tough look. Same thing, right? Condensing space to the sideline. Here's when they roll to it. Ohio State catches them. Ohio State's really good. Got a really good quarterback, really good receiver here. You can see it from the sky view here. Starting here, catches them, rotating, and then you just have that freak of nature coming across here. Tough to stop for anybody. Playing deep half. Again, this is a game where they were playing running backs at corner, so not exactly the number one Utah defense out there for this game, but Ohio State gave them a ton of problems, as they gave everyone last year. One thing I do like watching about Utah's defense too is they have a pretty extensive blitz package. They do a bunch of different stuff. They're not a static. What's if you're a Utah fan or somebody that's watching them, they're not a static defense. Now, right here, Jaron Hall makes an unbelievable play, and you talk about guys that could see their draft stock rise with a good year. I think he might be one of them. This is a really tough throw, but you see the Utah defense here. I think this might be some add-on pressure with the personnel look and formation here. This may be add-on from the safety, but get pressure. They're not afraid to bring extra guys. Here they're going to play two-man. Flush Hall out of the pocket, but again, some issues with a fast quarterback getting out of the pocket. Hall also makes a great play, extending the play with his legs later in the game, and just before the end of the half here, gets BYU down close to the goal line to go and score a touchdown right before the half. Here, different presentation from the front. You get the Mike blitzing, and you get a a game inside as well. So you get this here and a blitz with it. This game kind of occupies these three, and then the tight end's got to come down on the linebacker blitzing, and you get a free guy off the edge. Always nice when that happens. Then it's just man underneath, so 2-man. Able to get a sack there on 3rd and long. They'll do some traditional like zone blitz stuff where they'll bring a guy and we're dropping 3 deep, 3 under. 3 under, 3 deep, right? So we're slanting across here. We're bringing pressure. Bringing him from depth, and we're actually going to drop these two. So drop these two, slant, blitz, trying to open this floodgate right here. Pretty good protection, but BYU's pulling the guard, and this guy off the edge is a really good player, 42. Again, he's gone. He was a handful, though. Forces a throw, and then really well covered with the safety over, playing man coverage and the safety over the top there. This is probably, I would assume this is one of the healthier games for Utah on defense, and they held a pretty good BYU offense to, I would guess, a below average scoring output. So I think this defense can be pretty good when healthy. It's just hard to say how healthy they were last year. Obviously not afraid to bring the heat, but guys are able to make plays down the field on them. Really good decision, quick decision, but look, it's 3rd and 8. Take that. We're going to bring heat. 3 deep, 3 under. Take the quick throw. Showing, dropping. Showing 5, dropping. Or rather, showing 6, bringing 5. 3 deep, 3 under. Rally, make the play short of the goal, or short of the first down marker. Again, plays are there to be made downfield, but they're not afraid to play man coverage. This is basically 0. I mean, look at the safety coming down off the roof here, playing man coverage. This is 0. Bringing the same strong safety in the mic, and you got one off the edge. With this front, it could be a tight front. It's hard to tell. We don't have the end zone view, so it's hard to tell. It looks to me he looks like a 3 here, and he could be a 4-eye or a 3. So this could be kind of a version of the double eagle front where you got 2-3 techniques. You got a nose, and you got stand-up backer up top, stand-up end down here. It could be tight front where these guys are both in 4 eyes. It's hard to tell, but either way, different than the normal 4-down presentation. Force a quick throw, make a play downfield. This one kind of hurts, and they bring it. They bring a bit of an exotic here. Drop the end in the middle of the field. Bring a bunch of guys. You about get there. The quarterback gets the ball to his hands quick. He's able to hit, and then again, here's the tackling and the athleticism. I don't know how many of these guys are playing next year. I think some of them were fill-ins, but that would be something to keep an eye on. About get a pick here, able to get there with his safety coming on the pressure. Drop him. Slant. Bring in 2. Occupy 4 with those 2, just because they got to slant that way. Because you got this right now. We're slanting this way for these 4. Well, I only bring 2 of them, but now I got 4 on 2. And then now I got 2 on 1 on the back. Really good design here by Utah. Get a hit on the quarterback and almost get a pick with the linebacker that dropped off the line of scrimmage into coverage. It's almost a perfect double whammy right there. Looks to be some type of man coverage. Confirmed it. You go for the fade up top. Might have had the crosser slant underneath. Again, we're showing 4th and 5 here. And we see a familiar scene here. Jumps up, and now you got a quarterback on the loose. Might have a pulled hammy there. But again, another big quarterback run. So that is something to keep your eye on. Again, overwhelming the protection here with the blitz. Giving them some problems. Inside, outside, tackles, widens for there. You've got a bunch of dudes coming on this side, so they got to slant the line there. Get your end free to the quarterback. He gets a hit on. Receiver had a chance here against the man coverage, but had to get the ball out of his hands very quickly on a 3rd and 8. So I would not be shocked to see a ton of blitz on 3rd down from this Utah defense. They're not afraid to bring pressure, and why wouldn't you? Early game, young quarterback, new offense. Make sure those guys got their protection schemes figured out. I would expect to see Utah bring a ton of pressure, do some exotic looks. I mean, they're bringing strong safeties here in the A gap. So they're not afraid. They're not afraid to get a little exotic with it. So they're bringing guys. They're not afraid to play cover 0. It'll be the chess match. There will be something to watch for. And then if you're into the boundary, they will bring the corner. Right here forces a quick throw. They'll move around up front. You get the ends and the tackles sometimes twisting and exchanging gaps. Same thing interior. See that one. And there from you got your corner. There's a tackling issue. You got the corner blitz in here. They'll bring him from the boundary. The Utah's defense is tough to figure out. I think they're well coached. I think they've got a good scheme. They're not just sit back and play. We're going to play 2 coverages and we're just going to drop to our spots and you know what's going to come. They'll play man. They'll get aggressive. Maybe that hurt them last year with the injured guys, put them in some tough positions. But they're not afraid to be aggressive. I don't think that's going to change. I would imagine they'll ratchet that aggression up. What'll be interesting to me is how does their run defense hold up against Florida? When you look at Utah's run defense last year, overall it wasn't elite, but it's pretty good. They were 36 against the run in terms of yards per rushing attempt. In terms of EPA, expected points added, they were 53rd in the country against the rush. When you look at them in Pac-12 play, they gave up 3.47 yards a rush, so under 3.5 yards per rush in Pac-12 play. That number would be 21st in the country, so a little bit better than their overall. When you look at them in out-of-conference play, they gave up 4.27 yards per rush, so that number would have been about 80th in the country. So when they're outside the Pac-12 last year, they did not do a great job stopping the run, giving up over 4 yards a carry. Inside the Pac-12, they were really good. But is the Pac-12 a great running conference? I don't know. And with their offense being so good, they probably got up on a lot of people, and teams weren't able to run the ball. But you know who was? Oregon State was able to run the ball quite a bit. UCLA had a decent time. Ohio State, not bad. So I'm not quite sure what to expect from this Utah defense. Is it going to be the same one we saw last year, or are they going to be improved? I'd imagine there will be some improvement. They've got some good coaches and some good players coming back. But it will be interesting to see how these guys match up against Florida, especially up front. All right, so there's Utah defense. They're not afraid to be aggressive. They lost some pretty good players from last year. Number 42 played defensive end, edge. He was a really good player. They lost Devin Lloyd, obviously, was a first-round pick, and then their other starting linebackers, so they're replacing both linebackers. Number 7, Van Fillinger, I believe his name, is an edge. It's pretty good. Clark Phillips, number 8, is a corner. That's pretty good. So they have some pretty good players coming back. They also had the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year as a defensive lineman. number 58. He's a pretty good player as well. But they're losing some guys, and this is a unit that when you go back and look through the tape, I didn't think tackled that well. And going back to watch the Rose Bowl, they could have given up 60 points to Ohio State. Ohio State threw a red zone pick. Now Clark Phillips, the corner I mentioned previously, had blanket coverage and made the interception. But then they also had where Jackson Smith and Jigba was going in to score and had the ball poked out and fumbled into the end zone. So Ohio State scored 45, could have possibly got to 62 without those two turnovers. So they did not provide much resistance. Now, we know they had some injuries and things like that, but this will be a really interesting matchup for the Florida offense. Looking at the game in total, I think offensively, Utah is kind of what Florida wants to be. They're similar. They're going to be some 12 personnel. They use a lot of motion. They use a lot of condensed formations. I think Florida and Utah actually look similar schematically on offense. I think Utah's got a really good offense. That would be the one unit in this game that I think is proven, and you'd have to think is going to be pretty good. The other three, I think Florida's offensive defense have a lot of potential, but obviously we need to see it, right? New quarterback, defensively, new coordinator. Can you take advantage of that talent and those guys that maybe should have played more last year but didn't play? Can you take advantage of those guys on defense? And the Utah defense, how much was it injuries last year, and how much was it that, maybe the offense is going to have to carry this team? That's my big question with Utah. Are they just Pac-12 bullies? Are they bullies in the Pac-12, and then when they get out of conference, does that translate? Now, they're able to run the ball in Ohio State, but everybody was able to run the ball in Ohio State last year. Oregon, who Utah handled pretty well physically, ran the ball over Ohio State last year. So maybe that's not the best game. But San Diego State held Utah down pretty good in the run game. They were able to run the ball in BYU, but BYU won the game. So I believe they had 4 out of conference games last year. They were 1-3. So pretty good inside the Pac-12, but outside of it, I don't know. I think they're a really good team, especially their offense. I think their offense is going to be able to move the ball on just about anybody. And if Florida's defense is able to slow them down, that bodes really well for Florida for the rest of the year. Defensively, I think Utah is going to I don't think they're going to give Florida a ton of problems up front. I think Florida should be able to handle them if they play as well as they did last year at times on the offensive line. But Utah's going to be, they're going to be fundamentally sound for the most part. Guys are going to be in the right places. It's kind of about those matchups. Are you going to be able to – is Utah going to be able to play that aggressive man-to-man defense that their coordinator likes to play? If they can, it obviously makes it harder to run the ball. Same thing conversely on the other side. Utah doesn't have a ton of big play receivers, it doesn't seem, coming back. They have one that averaged 16 yards a reception last year, but I think he only had 32 catches. So is Florida going to be able to play man coverage and load up the box? Utah saw more 9-man boxes than anybody in the country last year. So that's not going to be something schematically they have issues is, but it might be some different types of bodies with some of these SEC guys and guys like Dexter in there. So that'll be really interesting to see how kind of just these two regions kind of match up. Utah, can they bully Florida? If they do, if Utah's able to come in and bully Florida, I think Utah's got a really good chance to be a playoff team. If they don't, they probably still have a good chance to win 10 games and win the conference. But that's why week one's so great. You never really know what's going to happen. I hope you enjoyed this preview. I think Florida's got a chance to win the game, but it's not going to be easy. Utah's well coached. They've got a ton of talent, and they have a really, really good quarterback. Cam Rising is really good, really steady, really smart. He's going to be tough to beat. But if you're Billy Napier, you come in game one and beat him and beat Utah, the Pac-12 champs, and Kyle Whittingham, that's a pretty good way to start off your career at Florida. So should be a fun game. Like this video, comment in the bottom here. Tell me where I was wrong. Tell me where I'm right. We're just trying to game this YouTube algorithm together. So please help me out. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's game the YouTube algorithm.